Thank you for coming today. Welcome to the afternoon session, which is Experience CMS User Training. We appreciate you being here. I want to go ahead and start, even though we still have some people trickling in, because we're already a few minutes past when we wanted to start, and I don't want to mess you up. Everybody's probably in carpool, and so we don't want to get you out of here late and then have all your carpool people throwing water bottles or something else. So let me start with who you have here today. And first, I would like to introduce Betty here. Betty is the president of St. Vincent de Paul of the Good Shepherd in Cumming. So some of you may know her. She's very experienced. She's also, could you go right out for us? She is also one of the intake and, there you go. She's also one of the intake and caseworker coaches. So, you know, we've been sending out all kinds of emails with links and information. She's one of the coaches, so I didn't tell her this, but I'm going to put all the questions to her. My name is Carolina. I'm from St. Mary Magdalene, which is down in Union. I am a caseworker. I've been a caseworker for all of 18 months. So I am by no means an expert, and I'm sure everybody in this room probably has more experience than I do. But I've taken a crash course on intake in the last month, and I think I've made every mistake in intake that you could possibly make. And I've also had a lot of good coaches. A couple other folks I'd like to introduce. John Pepe is here with us this afternoon. I know many of you know John. He's going to take on the very difficult task of chairing the advisory board, and so he has 6 teams working for him on different things, and as you can imagine, it's like herding cats, right? So he after 3 months of this, he's now a little bit under the weather, but he is with us today. The other person that I'd like to introduce is I would like to introduce someone who has been instrumental in the last 90 days trying to improve CMS for us. His name is Paul, and he is from Agilent. He actually lives here in Atlanta, and he is here today to hear your questions, your feedback. They have been a fabulous partner. John and I and Betty and the teams have been working with him for the last 90 days, and I cannot tell you how responsive he has been to us. So they really have been a great partner. I know when you're sitting on the backside just running the computer system, you kind of go, really? But really, they've been great, and they care enough that they showed up today. So that's a wonderful thing. They are committed to this. You know, we're all kind of here for a mission. We feel a great mission to help the needy here in Georgia. They do too, or they wouldn't be here with us, and they would not have donated hundreds of thousands of dollars in free time to our project. So they feel the same mission we do, and we're very appreciative of everything they've done. I would also like to introduce Larry. Does everybody know Larry? He is our new CIO. He's here. He's going to be, and all these guys are going to be, there's 4 sessions going on right now around CMS. So they're going to be jumping in and out of our sessions because they want to hear from all the different sessions and understand what the issues are, and really hear from you guys. But I want to be sure to introduce Larry. He's been with us he's been with us a long time, but he took on his new role just a month ago. So he has spent the last month with his crash course as well, coming up to speed on CMS. So I would like to start with a prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Dear Lord, thank you for blessing us with so many people who have answered your call to do your work and help the needy here in Georgia. Thank you for bringing us here together today to be spiritually uplifted by a wonderful morning, to make new friends, and to learn from each other. We ask for your continued blessing this afternoon, to open our hearts and minds, to continue to learn new ways to better serve your needy and forgotten people. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. Okay, so our purpose today. We are here to train experienced users, here again, Okay. We're here to train experienced users. I'm going to focus primarily on new functions that were released in 1.1, and that was just released 3 weeks ago. So a lot of you may not have had experience with them yet. I'm also going to go through specialty or hidden features that you might not have been exposed to yet. Red flag, how to draw check, how to print a CRF form when you're on the very last follow-up screen. So I'm going to try to go through those functions for you. And primarily, I am going to try to leave an hour for Q&A. We're going to split the Q&A up between case intake and case worker, but I am not going to stand up here and talk to you for the next 2 hours by a long shot. And if I'm going too fast, because I really do want a lot of time for Q&A, if you want us to do something over, just wait. What I'd like to do is I would like to introduce, we have 2 scribes here with us today. Over on your right is Keisha. Keisha is also a caseworker, and you'll notice that she has all those pieces of paper on the wall that say, the first few say 2.0. One of the things we're going to do here today is we're going to take all of your suggestions and ideas for the next redesign of CMS. And we're going to capture all those, and we're going to give them to the 2.0 team. So this is Keisha. She also has a mic. So if anybody has questions or needs anything, kind of wave your hand or stand up, and we'll bring you a mic, okay? And on this side, I have Sabrina. Sabrina is also an experienced caseworker, and she's going to capture all those questions that I can't answer, and that John can't answer, or Betty can't answer, or if there's any other coaches in the audience or someone that does know the answer, let's teach each other today. You're not looking at experts up here. We're just here to facilitate and teach each other anything we can today. Any of those little tips and tricks are a great thing. But she's going to capture all those with everybody's email address who's attending today. And so we will get answers to those questions, and we'll email you the answers. Sabrina also has a mic, and so she'll be helping to bring a mic to anybody that has a question. So the CMS Advisory Board priorities. You know, in January, John Berry came out and said, okay guys, we know this isn't working, we apologize. And he put together the advisory board, headed by John Pepe, and this was their mandate. And they didn't just make that up. They went out to all the conferences and said, you guys, what are the priorities? And they got input from all of us. I know a person from my conference working on it sent out an email to everybody in the conference and said, okay guys, what are the top priorities? So they got all our input, and these are the priorities. We've got 3 of them done. You see those in green. We're not done with the project yet. As you can see, we still need to stabilize the financial model and fix the search function. And they actually did some search work last week, but there's still a lot of search work to do, and they're going to start scoping it next week. And what the search function needs to be able to do for us. So where really are we at on the journey? You know what? We launched it in October 1st, last fall. We put together the advisory board in January, and then all the sub-teams that John's been managing and leading, and the sub-teams have all been on deck since about January 15th. And our mandate was not to do a full-blown redesign. Our mandate was for low-hanging fruit. What can you do that we can implement in the next 60 days that will make it better, smarter, faster? Not a complete redesign. No, we're not going to go and change the structure of it, if you will. But what are the things that are causing the most angst? And let's get those done and get those implemented. So that's really what all the teams have been trying to do over the last 60 days. We also launched e-history. So now, if you've done any casework in the last week, we announced it on Monday. So now if you have a prior client that was in e-records, when you bring up that client or an e-records case, there's a new tab there that says e-history. And it gives you all the notes from the situation that you logged in e-history. It's a wonderful new thing. That was just launched on Monday. And then caseworker search will launch next week. And then follow that with all the rest of the search options, the void check process, and then of course we're gonna launch 2.0. So any ideas or feedback, please by all means give it to us. Hopefully everybody got a handout. We handed out 2 things, FAQs and helpful hints. If you didn't get one when you came in today, come down after the meeting and get it. Sure. Okay, now while Betty is logging into CMS, I'd like to get a little sense of who you guys are. Can you tell me how many of you just raise your hand to intake? Oh my goodness, a huge group. Okay, how many of you do casework? Okay, so most of the people in here are doing both, intake and casework. So that's good. For those of you who only do one or the other, I would encourage you not to check out during the intake portion, because if you only do casework, one of the things that goes on in intake is there's a household tab. And I'm going to train on the household tab during the intake portion of this, and I'm not going to train on it when it's the casework portion. I'm also going to be giving you helpful hints all the way through, and so the helpful hints apply whether you're a caseworker or an intake or a treasurer or an admin. So I would encourage you to do that, and I want to save as much time as possible for Q&A. So I want to start with what I think is the most useful tip that we have uncovered for CMS. You see all these things down here that sit on your what's called your taskbar? Okay. So, you know, my mother always said that patience is a virtue, and I've worked for a few years on that, and I'm much better at it now than I was as a teenager. But in general, that's probably something I could work on a little longer. When CMS freezes up, I just, you know, I'm like sitting there at my computer twiddling my thumbs. If you click on anything down there on your start menu, or you launch any program, before, for instance, if she clicks on Word, that's a document. Before that goes to the screen, CMS will unfreeze. So the next, and it's on your helpful hint page, it's the last item on your helpful hint page. The next time you get frustrated because it froze up, do that. The only time that doesn't work is when CMS is searching for a client. Because you know we have tens of thousands of records, and it's trying to match to a prior client, and that's the only time it doesn't work. So if for some reason the Wi-Fi gets wonky in here today or something, that's what you'll see Betty do. That we're gonna pop that baby up and unfreeze it, which we think is a very, very neat trick. The one other thing that I want to address, and I want to do it up front, just because the question came in while we were waiting for everybody to get checked in, and I didn't have it in my script for today, is I got a question of when you're in a free-form field, for instance, situation. And on situation 1, it asks you to say, what's the situation with this person and extenuating circumstances, right? It's just a box, and you're just typing in copy, right? And none of us are typists, for sure not me. And you hit backspace. And it goes back about 8 tabs, right? You want to know the truth? It's not CMS, it's your browser.
No.
I understand what you're saying. I hear you. CMS works. I was using Internet Explorer 11, which is the latest version of Internet Explorer. And I sent this issue off to somebody back in December at Agile. And so with all the redesigned stuff, it was sort of hovering out there, and I asked about it again, and they started researching it and said, what browser are you using? Because I sent it out to the whole rest of my design team, and none of them had that issue. So I started asking what browser they were on. They're on IE10. And when we first started designing CMS, and I wasn't actually part of that, but when the team did, and we all do own this, IE10 was the only thing out there, and they designed it, and it worked great on IE10. But heaven forbid that we expect them when Safari, Chrome, Microsoft, Firefox, everybody else comes out with their new version, and it suddenly doesn't work, that we have to run off and make that our priority, to adjust to their new program. So my coaching view, what I did was, I switched over to Chrome. So my coaching to you is downgrade back to Internet Explorer 10 or switch to another browser such as Firefox, Safari, Chrome.
That's one of the answers. Just like I said, I'm still using 10 and I'm still having that same problem. So we just need to do this
I'm sorry, a little louder, please.
We have to switch to Firefox, and the only way we can...
Internet Explorer 10 did not work for you.
No.
Okay.
How is it compatibility? We had John to show you something to do with the records when it wasn't working. So if I go up to tools and click compatibility, it will backspace, okay? It doesn't hold it, session to session.
Yeah, I don't have that part up here.
I can make it work. That's good.
That's working.
You have to do it every time you open the computer.
Are you understanding what she's saying about the computer?
I understand exactly what you're saying,
It
and
might be worth mentioning to everybody.
what it is up on your toolbar, if you have an icon that looks like a torn piece of paper. And what she's telling us, and thank you for bringing that up, is that if you click on that icon, that it resolves the issue, and the backspace is no longer an issue. And
Icon, you can go up to the tools icon on the right, upper right-hand corner.
there?
There should be something in there.
Settings, tools, toolbar.
Okay. Sure, click on that. Compatibility settings is third from the bottom. Sure. And you just add that website and click OK, and that solves the problem.
But it doesn't hold it from the session. I mean, it holds it from case to case while I'm on the computer that time. But if I go back to the next session, I close and go back, it will have to do the same thing. It's not the whole session.
Is that box check display
Yeah.
on your machine? Is that box that's checked on there checked?
Yeah.
Display error message. Add to the view.
And you want to got the data. Did you add it?
Yes.
If you add it,
And it's fine.
So click on the add button. There you go. And then you can close. So that is great feedback, thank you. I will tell you that if you would put under questions a backspace issue, I'll know exactly what that means, and we will look into that further and get back to you. Fair enough? Okay. We're not here to snow you today. We are not here to blow smoke. We are here to teach you what we know and the new session, but we will also capture your issues. Please. Yes. So we'll stick close with the mic. Do you want me to repeat what was just said? Okay. Okay. So those are my first two sort of helpful hints. Now let's just dive into case intake if we could. One of the things historically, a lot of conferences did it case intake, they went straight to case intake. That's no longer necessary, and it's not even considered best practice anymore, because you can link straight from search into intake. You don't have to key it in twice. Used to be you had to go to search, see if it was a prior client, and then you have to come out here and go to case intake again and rekey the data. You don't have to do that anymore. This is one of the 1.1 enhancements that was put through. So you go to client, click on client, and enter all the information that you have so far, right? The more you enter, the better off you are. The most helpful information is if you have the last 4 or 5 of the social security number. And what we're going to enter is we're going to enter a client by the name of Irma Good. That, please. Hang on, let's get a mic so that everybody can hear you.
We have to go into conferences before we go into the cases.
No. No. She asked if we have to go into the conferences before she goes into the client, and the answer to that is no. You do not have to go into the conferences first. Okay, so we are entering her, and click on the search button. Everybody following us? Okay. And there she is, Irma Good, and sure enough, we've got a date of birth and all that, and it looks like that is our client. So we want to click on her, and we look at all the information we have on her, and everybody knows how you have to scroll down, right, to see all the information. Scroll bar on a lot of screens, especially if you're on an iPad. But sure enough, that's the information we got from her on the phone. That's still her address. So this looks like the client we're looking for, that's our prior client. Now you don't want to change any data here. You want to wait until you get to intake, but you do have all those fields. So now the big deal is, you don't have to go back to case intake. You can just, we've got a hot button right there, case intake. I'm sorry?
Did you say don't make any changes on that screen?
Don't make any changes on that screen. Wait till you get to this screen. She's bringing you up.
Is it on?
In the search, the name, one of the biggest problems we've had is if the name was put in, like, say, Jerry Dean Smith, and you have Dean in there, it will not find it, and many times that name was put in because they had a middle name and a last name or their maiden name, and it does not find it if you don't have it in it. At the time you're putting it in, you don't have that middle name, the search does not work.
Right. And if you'll hold that thought, I'm going to address that in a little bit about the way to get around.
Just wanted to get it out there.
I think the gentleman behind you is burning to ask a question also.
I just want to ask if you do put in a person's name and you put it in wrong, and then after you've added it, there's no way to correct that, right? Let's say like Goody on the last name here, and you put it in as good because you thought it was good. After you've added the person for the case, can you ever go back and change his last name?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Once you get to casework, the caseworker can edit anything in that profile.
But you can also, even after the caseworker is through with it, let's say it's 2 days later, you just go back into search, you search on it, you can change anything in search, and then just hit save at any time.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some ways to search later. Go ahead.
Yeah, because a lot of times you can sit there for 30 minutes and it's still going through the search period and you can't find the name because it's spelled 2 different ways. It won't come up.
Now, are you saying it takes 30 minutes for it to search one or searching multiple?
No, you only want to take your time.
Okay.
But if you want to spend 30 minutes, I have done it in the past. And, walked away and came back, and it's still in the search phone. But that was a couple of months ago.
Right, right. And they've made some huge improvements to responsiveness.
They haven't.
And we, the advisory board has said that that's green and kind of done, but I would tell you that it's still on Aguilar's list, and they're looking to take us to even greater speed. I would suggest in that case, I've been doing intake testing for 30 days, and I can tell you I'm doing 5 days a week right now. I've been in this system 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week right now. And I've never had it sit 30 minutes on me. I would say, do my little trick of launching a Word document or something from your start menu.
There's no little search that comes with little searches.
Right, right, right. And maybe that's a $2 suggestion. That we need a timer or a scrolling circle. That would be great. Okay. So we go back to where we're at. Are we good? Yeah. Okay. So we clicked on Match a Client, the record came up, and if this is the correct client and you don't have any edits, and we're not going to do this, but if you don't have any edits, if you click that next button, it'll take you straight to the next tab of household. But if you do make some changes here, and one of the things that was heard loud and clear was, we need to be able to edit it once we find the old one, because guess what, they moved or something, right? So all of the things on this screen are hot, and you can edit all of them, okay? So for instance, we're going to put in a cell phone number. We didn't have a cell phone number before, but we do now. But you can edit anything on this screen. And you'll notice Betty's not putting any dashes in. You know you don't have to put in dashes. I'm one of those people, I want as few keystrokes as I can do. So you don't put in dashes, it does it for you. So that's kind of a slick little trick. Go ahead.
The date you do.
The date you gotta put in you do have to put in the slashes on the date. You're right, you're right. Okay, let me point out a couple of new things on this screen. One, we've moved Spanish only and homeless into the center because people were having trouble seeing that off to the side on their screen, especially if they were on an iPad. So we moved that to the center. We also updated some stuff on other aid. You'll notice that we added section 8. And this would actually probably be a good time, Betty. Will you go to the upper right-hand corner above next and hit that box?
Right here?
A little higher. There you go. Click that bad boy. If you have an iPad, it really helps if you click that box, and you don't really need the left-hand tab, right? That's your page that you don't really need. That's for treasurers and administrators and district reporting. So when you're in intake, you don't need it. So we'll just stay right here on the live screen. Another thing we changed, under marital status, you used to have to key in if you hit married, it wanted you to key in the information on the spouse and their date of birth, and then it went nowhere, right? And you got to the next tab, and what happened? You had to enter it all over again. Right. Well, you don't anymore. You can click on married, and one thing before we do that, I want to point out, you also have 10 things on the drop-down bar. Used to be 5. So when you're scrolling, you're doing so much scrolling, and that just takes more time. And so we went to 10 on all of them, and that might not sound like a lot, but when you're entering a bunch of cases, it saves time not to scroll. So if we're going to say this person's married, and that's going to get saved, and voila, you don't have to enter any data that just goes off into cyberspace anyway.
And do you know you don't have to scroll, because if you just go to that box and hit tab, and then go right to married?
Yes, does everybody know that trick? I was actually going to wait a couple screens to show you that trick. But let's just check the married box for me, not drop down. Just click on the word married and put an S in there. No.
Go to select.
Click on that and it will A on
Now tab.
Okay, guys. Okay, guys. Time out. Time out. Okay. Hit S. There it is. So she didn't drop down. She didn't scroll. I'll tell you there's 2 ways to do it. If you tap to that and hit M, you'll get married. S is separated, or you can scroll down for single. The other way to do it is, and we're not going to do it, there are 2 ways to do this. The other way to do it is to actually click on the box, hit the letter that you want, and it will do it that way. So there's 2 ways to go about it. It doesn't matter, separate is fine. Probably not for them, but for our purposes today, we're okay with it. Okay, so we wanted to go ahead and go to next, because we've updated our data here. Let's go next. Because we changed the data, there you go. Because we changed the data on this client, even though we already matched to a client, it's coming back again to say, okay, you changed it. Does that mean you want a different match, or is it still the proper match? So it is bringing this back to you again to just say, are you still thinking this is the same client? So there's no real changes to the client ID screen. You click on match, and this is the proper match. And it says, okay, here's the comparison. Here's what we think it is. Here's what you put in intake. So you can tab between intake and current match and compare the 2 and make sure that that's really what you want. And if it is, then you just hit the select button and it'll take you onto the household tab. Not a lot of changes through
So
this
you can
process.
modify either of those?
No,
In the seating page or this one? You can modify either or.
to my knowledge, and Paul, you might know, to my knowledge, if you modify here, it won't save. The prior page you could, but this is just asking you to do a match. Is that correct, Paul?
We have to have a discussion about this offline, but the issue is that you're processing a case now, and the profile information in the case,
the profile information in the case will carry forward all the way to the caseworker, all the way to when it's complete. When it's complete, if you have an existing client that this new case is from, okay, it will override the information in that client profile and make it permanent in the client record. You'll have to back me up and explain, are you creating a new client here?
No.
Okay.
No, we match.
Okay, so the client profile information remains as it is being modified by intake and subsequently modified by the caseworker, or not modified at all. So you have two concepts that are decoupled. You have a permanent record, which as you saw in search, you could go to search and you could modify the profile information in the permanent record. And you told them not to, which is the correct procedure. Secondly, you have the notion of, I'm going to prepare a case now. And I might have a slight change in the profile information in terms of an address or phone number. While I'm in case mode, I am separate from the client record. Conceptually, physically, mentally, everything. So things are happening here in intake where I'm being very careful to make sure, one, I match to the existing client record that existed. Oops, I got a different phone number or a different address. My role as the intake person is to clarify that. And this is where you all have been very sophisticated in doing this. You've broken this down into the roles of intake, caseworker, case manager, treasurer, etc. But the important thing in intake is to get the new information correct for the client record. So therefore, while you're in intake, you're in a case, you're not in the record. This is a huge mind shift to the way e-records used to work. Because you were always in a record.
Does that make sense to everybody?
This is what you have, and I grabbed Larry, your CTO, because Clarita, who has been passing out accolades to John Pepe, who deserves every bit of the accolades, and not to Agile, because really Pepe's the master genie here, but Clarita herself has been going very, very deep into these procedures. And behind the scenes, she's talking directly, essentially, with the Agile developers, and she's saying, I've got an incident where these are happening and I want to edit this case profile information. So the bottom line is the big innovation that Georgia has come up with is to decouple the case concept from the record concept so that we have these changes available. If you go through here, you'll see why we have an intake profile and why we have a current batch. Go ahead and click on the intake profile. Okay. These are the different things. I searched one way based on my knowledge of the client record, and now I've got two profiles. I've got essentially a current match and an intake profile. So I'm answering your question, Clarita, in a very long fashion, is because of one thing. We decided we want to be able to edit the client record. Okay? That's different than doing case management. Clarita has pointed out now that this is system design where I'm in it. Furthermore, we've broken down the intake to two steps. There's an intake worker step, and then that information is passed on to a caseworker who can then edit it again in the case away from the client record. So in two major areas of managing this information, you can change a client profile in case intake, you can change a client profile as a caseworker, and you can change a client profile as a record manager. Okay, so this is really heavy stuff, and I don't want to go too deep on it, so I apologize.
These guys are carpooling, and I do need to get out of here on time.
So I need a comment. I mean, if you're doing this, wouldn't it be nice to highlight the differences?
No, but you can see it if you go back.
Yeah, you have to flash back and forth.
Let's capture that as a $2 enhancement.
Highlight the red.
It's a great idea. There is no bad idea. That is a great idea. highlight differences between current match and intake profile. It would make it much easier to figure out. Go ahead, the lady in green.
If I understand him correctly, then in the intake, if it's changed, and you hit intake profile, because now it's a changed record, and then the caseworker comes in and had additional changes that the intake worker did not know, that at that point, the record is changed the second time, and that will now be the case record.
For this
or
case.
and the client record.
Yes.
That other one is gone. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's correct. And I can tell you that, I am primarily a caseworker, and I'm changing cases all the time. Hang on, she's bringing you a mic.
I don't understand how you can have a case intake role, okay, where you're actually talking to the client and you're getting all of the information about the request, and not have anything on there at all to allow you to write what the details of that intake are. There's nothing on that. I mean, there's nothing on there where you can give details like that. Outside of the fact that the client needs $100 for a utility bill, but there's nothing in there of all the conditions that brought him to the place where he owes that $100. There's not. You can't put in there that the client is unemployed, the client lost their job, the client is sick. Sorry,
That's
but
okay.
I don't
So,
understand.
I got a question.
It seems to me that's really a flaw.
Okay.
Because you can't pass that on to the caseworker.
Do you do intake?
I do.
Okay, and you don't enter that on, go ahead and select next for me, please, Betty. You don't enter that on the request screen?
The request...
I think most people put it on the request screen. And go ahead and tap forward
We just have
for
to
me.
go so far.
The request details, you've got a free-form field here. And you can type put a novel in for comments if you want. You can put in 4 paragraphs there. It's a free-form field that you can type for as long as you want. I mean, that's probably not true. Paul probably has a cap on it of 500 characters or something, but you've got a lot of space there. Once you select what the issue is, put in the content. Okay, so let's go back to household if you would. Okay, we really did not make many changes to the household screen. We did add gendering, so we're asking for gender now. You can tap through it. We also made this a little more obvious on what in the world is that column. We put DDL up there to let you know that it was delete. And let's go ahead and add in one more person, if you would, for me, Betty. Let's throw Joe Good in there. And instead of putting in a date of birth, I'm going to ask her to put in the age of 0. And I just, in case you have never done this, because some people don't like giving out birth dates, okay? And go ahead and tab over, it's like he's a male, he's brand new baby. That's how the 0, that's how I grew up with 0. And he's white. And so you put that in. Okay, now if she clicks on this update button up here by spouse for me, the update button, it will calculate a birth date for him and put it in there. Now it's going to put in today's date, right? But it gives you the year. So it's an approximate birth date. There are people who don't like to give out birth dates of their children. That's a worrisome thing for them. And somebody taught them, don't ever give out the birth date because somebody can snatch that child and have all the information and steal their identity. And so that's a way to get an approximate date, okay? She's got a mic. Let me hang on here.
Okay, so we don't need to be concerned about the fact that that date, because I did that on Wednesday, with the client's age was 81. So we don't need to be concerned about the fact that that's not his actual birthday, just that the year is correct.
It's close enough.
Okay, thanks.
You know, there are clients that are hard to communicate with. And so they may be hard of hearing, or there may be a language gap. Doesn't have to be exact. Sabrina, we got a question down here in the first row. Second row, sorry.
Is there another screen, or is this the only screen to say who these people are? You know, brother-in-law, daughter, son.
Right.
That's most important. One of the most important informations, I think.
Right, and we tried to put it in the screen and just didn't have enough width, sort of a relationship column, if you will. And what we ended up doing was saying, and it's, if you look in your, I don't think it's in FAQs. What we're doing in my partners is we're putting it either as part of the last name. So I might put in there Alyssa Good, and I'll put in granddaughter. Or brother-in-law, or, right? And you can put it in either the first name or the last name to remind yourself of the relationship. I met somebody the other day.
So there's no formal, though?
There's no formal column for it.
And I get stuck on this page for a long time. The spouse drop-down drives me a little bit crazy, too. I don't really understand it. Like, what do you...
I'm so glad you brought that up. She just hit update. So once you list everybody, if you click update, that's now a live drop-down menu under select. That's okay. Go ahead and hit select now, and you will see all three of those names. If any of them happen to be the spouse, you could now select them and say it's the spouse. The other option is you can put spouse in as, these all are ages of, children.
So basically use the spouse drop-down after you're done with
after you enter the date, or at least enter the spouse. Just hit update and then you can select. You're rolling your eyes at me, which is a good thing, because it tells me you'd like a different thing. Would you rather have a column with a checkbox for spouse?
Yes.
Okay, would you capture that for me, please? Because we don't care?
I don't care.
Well, you care, but you also care about the daughter or the grandchild that lives there. You care about all the people in the family, not just the spouse.
The problem with putting it with the last name, because that's what we did in e-records, is when you search that name from household, you're not going to find it. So unless that issue is going to be taken care of in the search,
in a partial search.
That is not going to solve the problem.
That's a good point. Would you capture that as well? Relationships and partial searches need to be resolved. And we are talking about partial search for sure.
If the date of birth isn't important to me, you don't have it, just put an age and a random birth date sort of come up, why don't you just take the date of birth out and put the relationship?
You know what? No. You guys, I'm going to keep us on time. We're 45 minutes in. There's no idea that's a bad idea. We're capturing them for 2.0 and we're going to turn it over to 2.0. We can't debate and resolve it here today, or we won't even get through intake. Go ahead. I got your mic. She's got your mic.
A lot of cases that we get, they live in with the fiance. Okay, and it could be, 2 or 3 year relationship. They have children who's got the same names as the mother, and that's, I think we need to have something that's a relationship. Fiance, boyfriend, whatever it is.
Fair enough. And Keisha, would you capture that for me as well? And a drop down if you want. Okay. What else on household? Go ahead.
Quick question. Can you, when you do a search now, will these people show up in your search?
If you search household members.
Okay, so you have to search household members.
Yes.
Okay.
They do not search. They do not show up as a client.
Okay.
Let her bring you a mic, just so everybody else can hear.
Yes, this gentleman was just speaking about a fiance or something like that. If it's a significant other, could we just have drop down unmarried couple? Because then
which is what it is on the first page under the profile.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it's just not going to be there.
Choice.
I got you. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the household screen or any other suggestions for 2.0 on the household screen?
I have a question about the authenticity. You got Black, African American, and I'm running into people that are Black from South America, Central America.
Would you capture that for me? Okay. We we'll turn that over to 2.0. That's a great piece of feedback. Okay, let's move on then from the household screen.
One more question.
Wait, one more, sorry.
Is it a necessity to get the social security numbers of these children, these additional people in the family? Then why do we have that screen?
Because that column is there for the spouse or the other adult in the household. And so, at least in my conference, we only capture it for the other adult, not for all the children. And we don't, I personally don't even ask the parent for the social numbers of the children. You know, preserve a little price. But I will tell you, if in doubt, ask your conference president. Because we do things different at St. Mary Magdalene than they do at St. Olivet, or that they do at Holy Name, or they do at Good Shepherd. You know, Good Shepherd is the second largest conference in the state in terms of number of cases. Betty operates very differently than we do down at St. Mary Magdalene because she has so much more volume than we do. So when in doubt, ask your conference president how your conference operates. So I'm kind of answering that question when I really should be punting you back to your president.
Or they could also just allow letters instead of numbers in that box to put the relationship.
Great idea. Would you put that in? The SSN column, accept numbers and letters. That's a great idea. If it was a dual field and you could stick relationship there, that would solve the search problem. Excellent. Okay, anything else on the household screen? These are great ideas, you guys. These are great ideas. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to the request details then. So Betty's going to enter the information of what this client asked for. And suppose, and here's where the comment field comes up that we were talking about that you can type forever on, okay? And you put it in, and this is information you're sending over to your caseworker, right? Which might be you, but might be somebody like me that knows nothing about this client yet. So you're putting in information there. They need about $200 in rent and mortgage. But suppose at this point you're going through your notes from being on the phone with them and you go, oh, and they're over at Century Park Apartments. Did I put that in on the address line? So I want to show you the overview button. Sorry. She had to pay for a new transmission. And that's why she didn't have enough money for rent. How often do we have clients that live in paycheck to paycheck, you know, an extraordinary event like a transmission or a water heater go out, and they're underwater. So that was what this was. But I'm the intake person and I go, oh, did I or did I not put in the apartment name on the address line? So you go to Overview and click on Overview, and it will allow you to look at all the tabs without getting previous. And you can do this anywhere here or in casework. The Overview button lets you look at every single one of these. Don't get me wrong, you can't edit it, but you can look at all of them.
You can't modify it.
Exactly. Okay, so now let's go back to the actual case, and we do have an enhancement here. It costs a lot of money to hot tab these guys. So we did not hot tab all of them, but we did hot tab client profile.
Watch this now. Look at that.
And now that I know in the overview that indeed I did not put in the address, Century Park Apartments, in the second address line, I can go back to the client profile and put in Century Park Apartments so that my caseworker knows what apartment complex this person is in. So this is the one tab we made hot in intake.
Did you make a different color than the tabs that are hot?
It is.
It is.
It is. Just as soon as she goes back to request detail, you will see that this is, did you hit save? So she put that in, update, I'm sorry, not save, update. My bad. Okay, now go back to, well, that takes us back to where we were. And sure enough, client profile Can you see that that's a different color? It's white instead of gray? Yeah. So that's how you know that's a hot town.
Thank you. Do you have to hit the update?
Yes, you do in this case.
Why is it important to have the time request, the call being in at the
I'm sorry,
Why is it important on that time request? What importance does that make?
Some conferences have so many cases that they want to know when it came in and how long it's been sitting there, and their case managers actually use that information. You know, in Newton, our intake person logs name, address, phone number. That's it. And they have to be requested. This is a required thing.
The date request, I understand.
But that's very different than other conferences. So the thing is some conferences do.
On Friday morning, so it's very important as to what time that is called, because who calls first gets first served.
Guys, let me help you out here, and I haven't opened my mouth yet, and this will be the only time that I say something. We have to understand collectively that this is not a system for your conference, or my conference. Okay? This is for the state of Georgia. Okay? So there's some fields in here that you're going, that's of no value to me. And the next person down the highway says, thank God they put this in. Okay? Does everybody use Microsoft Word? Does everybody love it?
No.
Neither do I. But you know what? He wrote it for the globe. Right? And some people click on that ribbon and say, this is the best piece of software I've ever seen. And some people say, I cannot wait to Office 2020. This is what we have, okay? This is what we're using. This is where we're going. This product scales like this, okay? I know that some of you loved e-records and thought the sun wasn't going to come up the day we stopped using it. It's okay. Is this perfect? Is this perfect? No.
But neither am I.
Yeah, you're pretty close. You're pretty close. You're pretty close. But you have to understand, and the reason I felt compelled to come up here was I need you, when you're using this system, to step back and go, this is a little tedious for me, but I forgot that St. Luke says 10,000 of these every hour. And then you got somebody down in Noonan or wherever you mentioned that maybe they do 5 a month. I really don't know. But we can't customize 75 case input products. Okay? So please understand, keep the ideas coming. I'm sitting back here leaning over to Paul. Oh, that's a good one. He leans over. That's a real good one. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill up these walls, and then a handful of you and us are going to sit down and go, okay, we don't have unlimited funds, and we don't have unlimited resources. Of the 60, what ones can we do? Keep in mind the Bill Gates model, right? And how often do you get a piece of software from Microsoft that works perfectly every time you get it? Has anybody gotten one of those? Has anybody's screen gone blue lately? Has anybody's Word locked up? That's the reality of software development, okay? And I'm not here to defend Agile. I think they're a great business partner. But it's not perfect. It's electronics. It's your computer, it's your network connection, it's your wireless home network, it's the internet, it's Verizon, AT&T, whoever they hand off to. There's a lot of things that go on in the world when you hit enter. I used to tell the folks in the banks that I worked at, they would complain as a teller, look, it took 6 seconds to get their deposit. Do you understand what just happened when you hit enter? That thing went up to Milwaukee, got their record, brought it back down to you, showed them they had a check, said, okay, it's good. Went back to Milwaukee, said, we'll post it, and then here you go, and here's your receipt. Yeah, pretty good. So that's what we're up against here, okay? And I want you to understand that we're trying to do the best for the state of Georgia. Some of you are going to love us, and some of you are going to hate us. But our goal is to keep moving ahead. My goal specifically is to look 6 months, 12 months down the road. These folks here do it every hour. So I hope I wasn't out of line saying that. I wanted you to understand how slippery of a slope this is to try and appease everybody. But the goal here is to get a product that scales. And there's huge benefits here. I know, and I'm hypersensitive to how painful it was. I think it's a lot better, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm here to tell you it's not a train coming at you. If you're doing these things, and on September 30th, somebody says, did you send your annual report in yet? You're going to be able to go click, 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 there, you have it. It's coming. And this piece is the building block for that end of year, end of month. Have you ever gotten a request that says, how much did we give Fred's propane last year? What do you do now? I have no idea, right? In the near future, you're going to be able to click vendor, enter in January to June, and you're going to see it. So bear with us as the foundation is built. We're going to have a pretty nice building at some point, but we got to get the foundation solid so we can do that. And I promise I'll be quiet.
No, I'm so glad you're here. I am so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Please jump in again. Okay, so let's go to the next screen, which is other agencies. We really made no changes to this screen. So we're going to go ahead and go on to the next one, which is eligibility. Okay, so on this one, we've actually made one of those, I think, spectacular changes, even though I don't do intake. And that is, you know, we kind of have an accordion going here. And this is what we call accordion, and you'll see it again on casework. But down here, it shows past assistance, where you can actually look at their eligibility and pull that up for me, if you would, Betty. And it just kind of accordions up and then it'll accordion back down. But there's a past assistance. So when you want to try to decide if this person is eligible for help again, and in your conference, you have the ability to make that decision, which is not true in every conference. As Larry just said, we're all different. But you can look at it and know what the past assistance was and make an eligibility decision here. So let's say that we decide this person was just help. You just, no, you're perfect. She just clicked on current request and took us right back to where we were. Let's say that we decide that they're not eligible. Well, here's the cancel button. And it's not the first time it shows up. The cancel button's been here before. I just want to show it to you now. So if you click cancel, it says this will delete the case. It cannot be undone. And we're not going to do that because we're going to keep going. But if you look at that and look at the eligibility, you can say, okay, we're done, and it will completely delete that record. Hang on, you got something to the mic.
Why can't we not put that past assistance on an earlier screen rather than go through 4 or 5 screens to get to it? This is important when you're entering a lot of cases at once.
You know what? That's a great idea that we will capture. No one suggested that when we did the 1.1 redesign. But it's a great suggestion, and we're going to capture that, okay, for 2.0, that we actually want. And is it only past assistance, or do you want client, past assistance, and I'm trying to think of the third one that's usually there. Might be notes. We'll see it, and you can give me more feedback when we get to that screen. Go ahead, sir.
When you get to past assistance, can you print that? I mean, so your own reference, so you have the reference.
Right. Does everybody know how to do screen print? I know you could screen print. Or you could go back and reopen the prior case and print it from there. But no, I don't know how. Like you're doing, what you're saying is, I'm sitting here doing intake. I'm going to deny this, but I want to print something for my records for why I denied it.
Right.
Okay. Would you capture that, please? Print past assistance screen during eligibility.
Is overview knowledge you print now?
I think so. I think it was only advanced, but let's check it out, Vinny. Yeah, no, there's no print function, so we'll go back. It was a great question, though.
It was going intake or eligibility?
Eligibility.
I have it, and I think my question has been answered, but when you, let's say you decide they're ineligible and you're going to hit cancel, what gets it canceled? Just what you have put in? What about their previous record?
Previous record, previous assistance, all
stays
put. It's just this new case that you're opening.
If you finish this new, let's say you don't cancel them, and you finish this new case, does it carry forth on that case the help they had before?
Yes. When you get into casework, you can still see past assistance. And the casework caseworker can get into it and cancel them. It's actually called, not cancel, but it's called closed case. So all the way up until the check is paid, and even then you can go through a void check process, but you can keep canceling or closing the case all through.
I have one more quick question, and I think this is my ineptness. I got a wrong, totally wrong name from the intake person, and when I went with the person, I got that all straightened out. And so I went back, and I couldn't sufficiently change the record, so I was just going to wipe her out and start her again with a new one. I couldn't wipe her out. So now on my list of taken in cases, there's a case I can't seem to get rid of. She doesn't exist.
Assign her to yourself. And then close case.
Okay.
That'll get rid of her.
What do you do?
If you've been all the way through case intake, and we are one screen, we are one click from creating and not being able to cancel this particular intake and go back and edit it. But if you then bring it up under, whether it comes under assigned cases for case manager team or unassigned list for caseworkers or my assigned list, right? Wherever you find those sort of, they're done with intake, it's time to do casework. And it shows up in different places for different conferences. Once you open it, you can assign it to yourself, right? There's that accept button, and I'll show it to you when we get to it. We're just a couple screens away. Click accept, it'll say assign this to yourself. Click yes, and as soon as that happens, you have the ability to close that case and wipe it out.
Can you hit the cancel button real quick for me?
Sure. Hit cancel for us again, ready?
Okay, so if you hit yes because they've been helped, say last week, okay, and you've already put all this information in though for this person, is that going to be saved?
It deletes the record.
So even though you updated the family and you've wow. Okay. Well,
right.
Then the point that somebody made about putting this screen front center should be front center because you've already entered household information, new phone number, new address, and it's going to get wiped out.
And that's what Paul was talking about, so that's definitely on the list.
So the word continue there bothers me because I screwed it up and I don't know if I can understand either. It says continue, yes, continue what? To cancel or continue putting in more information? I understand that's what it means.
Yes.
I'm not sure.
You know what? Would you capture that for me? Clarify, cancel, dialogue box. Right. No, I hear exactly what you're saying. We got that. Absolutely. We're not going to, but if you say yes, that case, not the client that was helped in the past, but that case gets deleted. Can we bring a mic down?
I've got a mic here, ma'am. So you're asking the question, you want to see the past assistance, but when you search in the big search button on the top and you find that this is an existing record, aren't you able to see there that there's past assistance?
Yes.
Okay, so make sure I'm
right. You can see it.
Right.
You're right, it is there.
Check that first.
My question is totally different. Is if you're twinning with another conference, we do that often. We'll have a person who goes to our church, but they're in another conference, zip code area. So we'll pay part, and the other conference will pay part of their bill. Do you do 2 intakes?
I don't know the answer to that. Does anybody know the answer to that? For a 20 conference?
So I'm not going to quote. You should put all our information. And it should be somewhere in there. Yeah. It goes to you. It doesn't necessarily go to that one, to the entity.
So it's 2 separate things.
No, it should be one. The conference commission is connected to the client. With all the information in. And then we send our
transfer funds. Yeah. We don't twin with other conferences, but there's another conference in our area that we subsidize, if you will. And it's not a twinning thing. They'll get in low and we will have a really generous month with our parish and we'll send them money. So, okay.
My question is, if we have heard this plan for so many times, like 3 times, and you want to red flag, are you going to talk about the red flagging?
I am going to talk about red flagging.
On red flagging?
Yes.
Okay.
We can't do it here. You can do it in casework, and it's coming up and it's on my list to point out.
Okay, back to this.
Yeah.
When we put in a case and we see we can't help them and we want to cancel it, shouldn't we capture that that person calls every other week? Or when they change their situation?
Would you put that on the list? Because I understand exactly what you're saying. It's sort of going around the room.
Right.
Cancel should not necessarily delete a case.
Especially if it's been
not an update to all the information, and not the fact that they're calling once a week looking for help or once a month or whatever it is. So great feedback. Who else has any more ideas or feedback or questions? Over here. Let us get you a mic. Can you? Where? The lady, 1, 2, 3, 5 rows back right there.
Okay, so I just finished as the case coordinator for the month of March, and I couldn't figure out, when you're pulling up the information about say 6 cases that you're going to sign, and you want to be able to send that information to someone that you would like to assign a case to. I've gone back to an old-fashioned method of actually writing down the information. I said, there's got to be a way I can copy and paste this information and email it to the caseworker like we did in e-records. Is there a way to do that?
John, did you hear that question?
No.
Okay, so she's doing a case manager role. She assigned the case to someone.
Yeah.
And she's writing it all down and then putting it in an email. Do you know of any shortcuts, short of like a screen print, to not have to handwrite that and then type it into an email and send it?
What are you handwriting?
Huh?
What's she handwriting?
The information. Here's their name, the case number, and their phone number. I just assigned it to you. You know, I'm the case manager and I just assigned a case to you. And rather than hoping that you went and looked for it, I'm going to send you an email to say it's there.
In e-records, you used to be able to copy and paste the whole summary and then embed it into an email so the person would have all that information. They would have the name, the address.
Well, you sort of do the same thing with screenshot, right? I mean, just take a screenshot, copy and paste it, put it in an email, send it off to them. Same thing.
How do you do a screenshot?
Okay, I'm going to show you.
Well,
it'll take me 30 seconds.
Okay, it's pretty easy to do a screenshot. I mean, all you do is hit 2 keys. It's sort of like a cut and paste, or copy and paste.
Okay, you see what's up there right now?
I'll show you how to do it.
On the top row of your keyboard somewhere is going to be print screen. PRNT-SCR. It's going to be shortened, right? Because they can't get it all on there. But I am going to hit print screen right here on this one. I am going to go down, and this is not my computer, so I can't launch email, but I can launch Word. And I am going to paste that in there. Oh, what happened?
You basically do a Control V.
Yeah, I did.
Control V, like in Victor.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, right. Print screen and then Control V, and it'll get it into the email, and you just send it off.
I think it's sticky.
Control V. It's a paste.
Yeah, you know what? It's not my computer.
Yeah, Control V. It's all print screen.
Somehow
all print screen. All print screen, and that kind of like puts it out on a clipboard, just like you would a copy and paste. And then you come to the document, let's say that's your email program, and then you hit Control V, and it will paste it right in that document.
Okay, but here's what I like. Keisha, would you capture that for me as an idea for 2.0? Because you know what? It would be great if at some point in 2.0, you're finishing the intake and you could say email, there's a little box where it would send an automated email to the caseworker for you. So it's a great idea. Can't do it yet, but it's a great idea. Please.
We do have to kind of keep that in mind all the time.
Right.
That we're going to have the correct information, call the person.
Right.
Tell them, they write it all down, you have to give them driving directions, you know, but they're great workers. We want to keep them active, that's all.
Right. That's great feedback. Great feedback. Thank you. Okay, so this is the point at which, when you hit that next button, that this file is created, if you will. This case is created. So let's go to the next button. Submit for assignment? Yes. Okay, so now I will tell you, this may not be what your screen looks like as a case intake person. It does now. Well, there are actually about 4 versions of this. So your conference may be configured the same as we've got this test conference configured, but there are some where you see these buttons up here, the accept, assign, and done. Some of them you only get okay. Some of them you get accept and done. Some of them you get assign and done. Because as Larry was saying earlier, we're trying to design this based on a lot of different conferences, 75 of them, and their process. And so this may not be exactly what your screen looks like, but bear with us because there's actually 8 different choices for how you configure assignments of cases across the state of Georgia. So that's what Larry's talking about with flexibility, is we're trying to support everybody as best we can.
Does every conference have to have 2 caseworkers? Yes. Okay. You cannot put a second caseworker in the system as it is now. You can only put 1 caseworker. You accept it or update whichever you have, which is what
That's a great question.
And then it kicks you out, and you have to go back into searching for the case back.
So, one of the things, and this is for your administrator, whether that's your president or someone else within your conference, there is a new role in conference administration called conference member. And if all of your caseworkers are listed as caseworkers and conference members, then they're all going to show up on this secondary drop-down. I'm sorry? Yes, it is. And you know what I can tell you, because I had to do it myself at my conference. Yours does? You're having a problem? No, I'm not. No, I'm not doing it. I went into my conference. Now, here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you. No, never mind. Go ahead. Have you got the solution?
No, I've got a solution. I've got a question. This happened.
Oh, hang on. We have an answer.
No, it's related to what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay. This happened to us last week, and I was delighted to see it. I filled it in, caseworker, case manager, secretary. Beautiful. Submitted it. Beautiful. Off it went. But I assigned the cases to myself as I was instructed by the conference. But when I checked my assigned cases, they weren't there.
Where did they go?
That is my question.
We're going to capture that as a question. If potentially, if you assigned a case manager, and let me ask you something. Was the case worker that you assigned yourself?
Yes.
Okay. And did you hit accept or assign or none?
Done.
Okay, the problem is, done, I can tell you where it went. It went to the unassigned list. If you put names in here here, you have to hit assign. If you assign it to yourself, you should do accept, technically, or you can put your name in under caseworker, but you have to hit the assign button. If you want it to go to these people, you have to decide. If you hit done, it goes to the unassigned list. Either unassigned cases for the case manager team, if that's the way your conference works, or unassigned cases for caseworkers. If you hit done, it's going to one of those two unassigned lists.
But to assign it to yourself, you must press assign.
Well, you got to put your name in here, and then click assign. The other way, if you're the intake worker, to assign it to yourself, is just click the accept button. Because if you click accept, it'll say, in fact, click accept for me, would you, Betty? It'll say, assign this case to yourself.
Yeah.
We're not going to, because I'll never find it. But if you want to, hit yes on that, and it'll assign it to yourself. Let me get you a mic. Have we got a mic?
Can I ask you a question?
Please, you have a mic. Go for it.
Yeah.
I will come right back to you.
On the caseworker, I can see the select because you don't want people as caseworkers to know what they're doing. But secondary, people oftentimes are not members of the conference. It may be a wife, it could be a friend, it could be anybody. So if you hit select and it comes down, it's only going to show people that are in your conference, or people maybe that are even put in as possible companions. Couldn't there be a spot where you can type somebody's name in? Did you just select and then you get the other or something where you can put somebody else?
Right. And I got 3-point text.
Yeah, because if it turns out you use the same person, maybe you can flip that to being a member or something.
Drop down. I know exactly what you're saying. Okay.
Okay, and the question I had was, when this new one came out where they kind of taken some of the extra place stuff off, the new one, it came up, I put myself as a caseworker, I put a case manager to sign, but then the secondary was grayed out to where I could not select the person that went with me, whereas before I could select both, but it was grayed out to where you couldn't select.
And the reason it's grayed out, in my experience with my conference, working with my president, who's also the administrator, people have to be assigned to the role of conference member to show up on that secondary list. So even though I'm a caseworker, if you look at my profile, she put me in as a caseworker and a conference member, because I not only manage cases, right, I do my own casework, but like one of my peers will say, hey, I've got an 80-year-old lady, I need a woman with me. Will you go with me? So it's not always just an associate that does the ride-along, we go with each other. So I'm listed as a conference member as well, so that somebody can pull me up as the secondary.
But the person was there before. Both of our names were there before.
Right? And they had to change it because we asked for associates to be able to put on the list. And that's why you just need to add conference member as another role for your caseworker, or anybody who rides along. Okay. Did that answer your question? Do you understand?
Wouldn't it be better?
I'm sorry?
Wouldn't it be better to be able to assign the second rider by the caseworker?
You can, and I'll show you where. That's a great question.
Because a lot of times the intake person doesn't know who the second is.
Absolutely.
Are you eventually going to get rid of accept, assign, and done, and just have one simple button for the intake worker? Because every case I get is unassigned, because I'm sure they get done versus assigned, and it's just very confusing where it's just have one button.
Keisha, will you capture that for me? Great feedback. It is great feedback. Okay. On submitted screen, only have one done button. Eliminate, accept, and assign. Did you have a question? Okay.
Okay, but if you do that, then I have to go to a different screen to assign.
No. She's not saying take this away. She's just saying if I select something here, let me hit done. Don't let me have to learn to do accept or assign. Just whatever I do, one button says, okay. execute.
When you're putting a caseworker or a secondary, the other day I made a mistake and I put a caseworker to secondary, and then I had assigned. Why can't the secondary put in the information, assistance and everything, for him to be the caseworker?
Why didn't they let y'all go through this stuff?
I was trying to put it in as a secondary.
Yep, I'm with you.
And it wouldn't let me.
So let's capture that as a 2.0 idea also.
So it's only like a caseworker. is the only
Or
one that
secondary can enter client data, is what you're saying.
Because I'm
Especially for
trying
all caseworkers and not just a ride-along.
So I mean, would it, say she can't put it in, and I'm riding along, and I'm putting it in as a secondary, but it wouldn't let me.
Yep, yep.
So
Okay.
like she was the one to do it.
That's why we have all those sheets up there, because we knew we'd get a million great ideas. So, what else? Any other feedback or advice on intake?
I do intake twice during the month. And when I'm doing intake, a lot of times I'll get calls from someone who has already called, maybe last week. And I do not know what has happened to that case. So I need to be able to say, well, somebody came out to see me. Well, who was it? Well, I don't remember their name. But I don't know who it was. I'd like to be able to call up that person's name and find out that Ron has her case. So I can call Ron and say, Ron, your person has questions. This happens all the time. And it could be from 3 weeks previous. So I really need to know who is handling XYZ person.
Right. And the only way the system can tell you that is if XYZ person has gone in and accepted assignment of the case, right?
I don't know who accepted the case.
Right, but if they actually physically went into the system and went into casework, into the prepare tab and accepted it, I can tell you that we are on Monday or Tuesday going to release a search function that will tell you that Ron's the guy.
Oh, it doesn't do it right now.
It does not do it
oh,
right now.
Oh, thank God, I thought I had been missing it all.
It doesn't do it right now, but on Monday or Tuesday, God bless John Pepe, he's going to have that for you.
Okay, hallelujah. The other thing I want to know is this. If you had a number for a client, let's say client John Brown, and his actual number was 123 because you had helped him, 5 times in the last 2 years. Would there be a number you could just stick in that says 123 and then my John Brown comes up? Instead of having to put John Brown, who lives on such and such a street and whose social security number is so and so?
Yes, and you can do that now. You can search by case.
It doesn't come up.
What doesn't come up?
Search by case.
In my experience, when I put in a case number for a CMS client, not an E-record client, but a CMS client, it does come up.
Okay, maybe this is the problem because I never did it.
Let's stick that over on the questions.
Okay, and how do you get that?
How
do you get that number?
If you stand by,
I will.
How do I get the number, or how do I put it in and find it?
Well, how do you get, like, the person's number? I mean, are you
Their
talking
case
about
number?
case number, or?
That's what we were talking about. Case
Okay,
number.
but not a client number.
Case number is the client number.
No, I
And they
thought
might
the case
have-
number was the case number that on September 25th.
That's true, and they might have, you're right, they might have 5 case numbers.
Yes. So this is my point. If there's a number, which number is assigned to the person, not the case?
I hear you. Let's capture that for 2.0, that perhaps we need a client number versus a case number. And they can look at that in 2.0. I hear you. I know, it's 2 o'clock already, we haven't even started casework. Okay, keep going. Okay, please don't. Okay, so, in this particular configuration, what we clicked on, where we set it was unassigned cases for casework. That's just the way this particular configuration is set up. So we're gonna build there, and sure enough, there's Irma. So we're gonna pop her up, and we're gonna process her as a caseworker. Now, this was not assigned to anybody, and so we need to assign it to someone now. We're going to assign it to me. The only way to do that is under accept as the case worker, right? And we're going to assign it to me. There you go. Once you do that, you can now print the case record form, right? So if we launch that case record form, let's go ahead and launch it. Launch something down here for me. Oh, there it is. See, I told you guys I have like no patience, right? Now, you do have to scroll up and down, but you notice this was a prior client, right? We had past history, and sure enough, the information from the past history is pre-populated for you on this case record form. But one of the changes we made to 1.1 was, if you scroll up for me, Betty, they used to also pre-populate a bunch of stuff in home visit and how long have they been here and whether they have Medicaid, health, and all the rest of it. We did get rid of all of that that was no longer correct.
So the question here earlier, when you were putting request details, you said in the comments you have 500 characters. Where can we see that? I noticed that form up that what you typed in there.
Scroll way down for me. We're like at the bottom of the second page or so. Let's see.
There was a request for rent.
Yep, keep going. There, okay, so it shows you that they want rent or mortgage, but it does not print the notes.
That's one of the reasons that we desperately would like to see all those notations.
Okay. Keisha, will you capture that? To add request comments to the CRF.
So in other words, all that typing in that field, and it didn't even show the dollars up there. I mean,
no, because that's in the comments field. So that's great coaching.
Past assistance on that at the bottom? No.
No. So you would like to see past assistance as well?
Yes.
Keisha, would you add past assistance to the CRM?
So the way...
hang on, one at a time, please.
The way our conference is overridden that, I thought that was the case. See, we have our intake workers be caseworkers, so they can get to the situation field where you can type that. Then when you print this out, you've got some information, you really know what's on the case.
Okay.
So I think it's really great.
Okay. It's great feedback. Go back to the first page, please, Betty. What? Down.
Last 12 months, agencies now.
We didn't fill anything in there, so, okay. Anything else on the case record form? You guys know how to print it? How you just, it depends on what browser you have. You kind of hover and there's the print icon. There's also a print icon oftentimes at the top on one of your toolbars. But if you hit the little, one more over there. Yeah, that one.
I have a problem with printing.
So there's another way to print, but go ahead. Who's having a problem with printing?
I am.
Thank you.
Yeah, whichever way I try, it always says access denied. I don't know why.
Is anybody else getting that? You're getting it. Okay. Sabrina, will you capture that for me?
Problems with print.
Yes, printing problems, access denied. And would you mind giving her your email address? And would you mind giving her your email address as well so that I can communicate directly with more follow-up details? Okay, great, thank you. Please.
I would like to see the case record form that we fill out and the CMS entry more matched, because I have to send back and forth on the page. Like it asks for the reasons that they're in the situation and what they're going to do in the future and everything. And then I have to go back to the front of it and put in income and the expenses and everything. And also, there's one thing that is not on that caseworker form, on the visit form, that is asked for in CMS, and it's the most important thing to me. And that's when you're requesting a check. It doesn't ask for the account number on the form. So you have to remember that. You have to make a mental note.
Great, great. So will you capture those as ideas?
The account number.
Match CRF to CMS step process. And I know that's not exactly what you said, but that's what I'll know when I type these up. Then I'll remember and be able to expand on that. And under check request, add account number if you would, Keisha. On check request, on CRF, add account number. Okay, please.
Were you having the underlying causes?
Yeah.
Why don't you be able to put another, there are so many things that are not on there.
I could not agree more. I am all over that. Expand underlying causes.
Yeah, illnesses.
They're unemployed.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff.
None of the above. Oh, I know. I will tell you that those are structured because those are a lot of questions we get on grant applications. And so there really is a reason they put that list in there. They didn't just pull it out of the air. But we need a couple others on there. Okay, I'm with you. Please. And we did just capture that idea. It should be on here. It should print on here. Okay, anything else? Let's leave the case record form then. And you can just do that by hitting exit. Okay, and I'm not going to launch Google Maps, but one of the other improvements that we made on this iteration was, it used to be that Google Maps tried to read the second line of the address, and a lot of conferences were putting the name of the apartment complex on there. So like we did, Century Park Apartments, and Google would see that, and they didn't know what to do with that, so it made it a mess. So on 1.1, that was released 3 weeks ago, Google, it's programmed not to send the second line of the address to Google, only the first line. So anybody that uses that second line for, apartment number 3F of Century Park Apartments, Google will actually work for you now. The Google Maps will work. I know, we needed that. We were trying to do better, smarter, faster. What are the things we can do to fix things that were driving everybody crazy? So that's what we're trying to fix. Okay, so other than that, the prepare tab is pretty much the way it was. So let's go ahead and go on to the visit tab. No real changes here. You can click on that selected image and they'll bring up home for you. Everybody knows you can either hand key the date or you can select it off the calendar function, right? You need to put in mileage. then we'll move on to the next tab. Any thoughts or feedback on visit before I move on? Yeah.
In a lot of the cases, we have an interview room in our thrift store, and so our mileage is really just tagged in one time because we're not going from place to place.
Right.
But it doesn't give you an option to put in 0.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Will you tab back for me, Betty? And get rid of
The other problem we encounter is
make it 0. And hit update for me instead of going forward. There you go.
Can we do the same for minutes? Can we put in?
Yes. Yes. Somebody in the middle has their hand up?
How would they add the secondary there? Volunteers and secondary.
Go to advanced. Yep, actually, okay. Go to advanced for me. Pull down secondary over here, and I think it's conference member is the only one. Martin Fisher, I don't care, either one. Hit reassign. Hit previous. Now click next for me again. I know that's a kludgy way to do it, but there it is. It's kludgy. I know it's kludgy, but we actually got that from someone else, and I had to figure out how to make that work. Okay.
Go back to advanced, because I did this for an hour, just got pure, it's got to work, and it did it.
Right.
I went back to advanced, and see, it's not there.
You're right. It doesn't save it there, and that is one of the things that we gave them feedback on. But it's in the visit. It does know that's your secondary. But I hear you. Okay, anything else? It's not done yet.
I have a question on minutes. How do you want to figure minutes? Do you figure from the time we start writing up on we get the case and we start writing on this, we go out and we see the client, then we come home and spend 2 hours on the computer trying to get it in? We want all those minutes. The phone calls that we call to confirm that the client has owes so much to this vendor.
I estimate what the whole case is going to take me. See, I've already gone on the visit, and I'm at home entering it before, and I've done everything. And I'm doing this after I have called and verified with the vendor and done everything. So when I get to this screen, I know basically what it is. But you can always guesstimate time, but in your full time for the case should be here, not just how long the visit took.
And your time is basically for your annual reports and for grants. I mean, you know how much time you're spending, but if we say how many hours we volunteer and the money that we give out, that's what it's all about.
Go ahead, make it green.
When you're looking at that secondary, wouldn't it have been just easier just to add a second line there that you could add instead of going all those gyrations?
Keisha, would you capture that for me, please? That on the visit screen, that the lines are live and you can add somebody right there. Your boxes are live, yep, go ahead.
And also, on this screen right here, if you accidentally, for some reason, there's a secondary, it didn't end up being secondary, there was no way to delete that. And I had to put in minutes and miles for that person that did not even work on the case, but I could not delete that. Could not, and I could not move forward.
You know what? And we realize we need to add delete. All you have to do right now is put in zeros for them.
Exactly.
And we realize, and go ahead and capture that. We need a delete function on the visit screen. Yes. All you can do right now is put in zeros. Okay, so you guys, we have about 15 minutes left. You can stay as long as you want, but I'm going to stop all questions so that we can get all the way through caseworker, and then I will stay here and answer questions for as long as you would like. But for those people who are carpooling and need to get out of here, I want to at least finish the presentation. Fair enough? Okay. Okay, so next. Oh, here's somebody asked about red flagging. Here's where you can red flag a client. You do have to put in a description or a reason, and then you have two choices. And were you the lady? Yep, that's what I got. Okay, two choices. You can either close it without assistance, which will close the case, and that client will be red flagged. Or you can red flag and actually continue the case, help them this time, but you're putting out that red flag that says not next time. Okay? Now, we're not going to red flag this client, but that's how you do it, and you can do it as soon as you accept the case and move to the very first screen visit, you can red flag.
So what about if the client comes back another year, like in 2 years?
Yeah. Well, then, when you are opening a red flag client, you know, they call, you find it in search, you open it up, and these instructions are in the training manual. A dialog box will come up that says, this client has been red flagged. Make sure that you have authorization to proceed with this client or talk to the prior caseworker and an officer before proceeding and taking the red flag off. So it's not exactly what it says, but that's the gist of what it says once they've been red flagged. You can unred flag them if it's been a year or two.
So it doesn't read the reason. You can't see the reason of that case was red flag to begin with.
Okay, there we go, another idea. We need the reason for the red flag to be shown up for the when you go next to that case. You guys, I am going to cut you off. I'm going to cut you off because we want to get all the way to the caseworker. Okay, so we're going next. So we're going to the client tab. Oh, sorry. Now we have the second person. We have to put miles minutes in. We didn't originally have that person there, but somebody asked for a secondary, so we put it in. Okay, two things I want to point out to you. Remember I said, you know, the accordion earlier where we had past this incidents? Now we also have the client record and the request details. So put up request details for me, Betty. There you go, $200. Had to pay for new transmission, short on rent. So that's one place you can look at any of that as a caseworker. But if we go back up to our case client, there you go. This is the information we currently have about them. There's also a client record. And the client record may have more information about that client than the intake person did so far. So one of the things that you can do, and I told you what happened in my conference, right? They take down name, address, phone number, and what the client request was. But there might not be a second phone number, might not be anything about whether they're married or anything like that. To save me time as a caseworker, when very little is entered up front, I can actually import blanks from the current client record. So if I want to, and the client record is correct, I can just click on that, and it'll import all, not the boxes like Medicaid and WIC, but all of the boxes of data, like how long they've lived there, and Coweta County, and married, and female, and all that kind of stuff. So that's a nice shortcut that they added in. This is, no, you're fine. So this is a match, right? We know that Irma is right, but I actually want you to go back one for me, Eddie. I have one other thing I want to show you. Okay, let's say in that rare instance that intake matched to the wrong person. How do you get rid of that? For some unusual reason that we have 3 Sarah Johnsons in Newton, I don't know, but for some unknown reason, this client record is really not, because this is the prior client with past assistance. This client record is really not the right client. And intake didn't have enough information to know that this was not a match. Well, what in the world do I do now? I'll intake back and say, could you redo that for me and send me a new one? I'm going to close this one. This is the one place where you can actually change the client match by doing change client. Go ahead and click on that. So if it was a mismatch during intake, you have an opportunity to change it. Okay, this thing. There you go. And what it's doing is saying, okay, you want to match to somebody else? Here's all your other options to match to. Now, we don't have a lot of options because this isn't the real system. It's partitioned off. It's just a test section. But you could match to a different client here. So go ahead and click on her because she is the right one. Okay, and then yes, it's a match. I will hit select. And it's going to take me to household. Okay? No changes to the household screen. We went through that during intake. So we're going to go ahead and just click next. And here's situation 1 of 3. And, you know, it takes a fair amount of time to move from tab to tab to tab. And that's because the system behind the scenes is saving all that information. So what we did was to save time on that, we consolidated instead of having 7 screens, you now only have 3. So it saves you a lot of time when you're sitting there waiting for the system to move to the next screen. So these are just free-form fields. And so Betty's just going to, and they are required. Both of these have to be filled in still. Sorry. You have to, even if you just put garbage in, just go, there you go. Yeah, and then go down below to clients plan for the future. And it's no different than the 2 screens were before. They're just now on 1 screen. So there's less waiting time moving from tab to tab. Okay, so now we're going to have situation 2 of 3. These were 3 prior screens that are combined into 1. You got to scroll down for them, but you have employment, income, and expenses. Okay? And it is bringing in the prior information from when we helped them last year, so you can edit any of that. Or if it's the same, you can leave it alone and just say, you know, there's no different, but because she lost her transmission, that's why she's struggling. But no, she's not making any more than she was last year. Okay, so it will preload all of that information for you. Let's go to tab 3 of 3.
If you don't have something here called unemployed, it's either part-time or full-time.
True, and you just leave it blank. You just leave it blank. Because they're not employed. They don't have a job, so if it's blank, it means... Okay. Do you think it needs to be a positive action? Part-time, full-time, unemployed? Yeah. Okay, will you add that for me? Add unemployed to employment to part-time, full-time options. Okay. I'm going to ask you to hold the question because I want to get through all these screens for anybody that has to leave right at 2:30. So situation 3 of 3. This we already talked about and we already captured the idea we need more underlying clauses. That section is required. The other 2 sections, how is it taken care of in the past? And how is it taken care of, how are they planning to take care of it in the future? No different than the 3 screens you had before. They're just all on one now. Fair enough? Yes. Okay. So let's hit next and go to the assistance tab. Oh, yeah. Yeah, any one of those. No, only the first section is required. The other 2 sections are not required. And when it's not required, feel free to go to your conference president and say, does our conference want to capture this information? I can tell you in unit, and I can tell you holy name, we don't capture income and expenses. We feel it changes too much and it's not pertinent data. We do capture it on our form when we visit them and evaluate the need and determine whether we need to coach them on budgeting and all that kind of stuff. So we have it on our paperwork, we just don't key it all in. It's a conference by conference decision, and if it's not required, feel free to go to your president and ask that question. Okay, now on this screen we put in the add assistance request, and we moved it way over here. And I know we all figured out where it was finally, and it was over on the right-hand side. But what about new trainees? What about new people that come in? So we moved it over and made it big and bold, so that anybody new on the system, it will be much more intuitive for them. So no changes to this screen really either. Category, we're going to give a red, so we've got housing and storage. And again, this is a great place to use the keyboard, catching on one of the keys and just putting in H for housing. And she was looking for $200, $300 is fine. The account number, often there's not an account on something like rent, but a lot of times I'll put in there the apartment. Some conferences need to know who the caseworker was, so they'll put that in here, because when the person who's approving the check is looking at it, they want to know who that caseworker was. So they'll put in the caseworker. In my conference, we put in who approved it. Because the auditors, the state default auditors, when they came through, last year we were one of the random audits, and they said, well, we want it in the record, who approved it? So this is where we stick that particular thing that the auditors asked for. Lois approved it, and the caseworker was Tuesday. So this is sort of a free-form field, but that's how we use it. Okay, so this is the same as last time, right? It's a check. We're going to hit yes on here. Everything else is pre-filled in. Vendor categories, housing. You can select the vendor, right? Century Park Apartments.
How about debit cards?
I'm sorry?
When we pay for something with a debit card, check request is not really part of it. There's no good way.
Keisha, will you capture that, please? Under request check, yes, no, debit card. In my conference, we send it through as a yes. And then when the treasurer gets it, he puts in there that it was paid with a debit card instead of a check. But I hear what you're saying.
You need a place to put information about the debit card and the transaction number and something.
Is that the same as online? Because some of them are doing online billing. So
Check is the same as online.
Is it the same as online? They do it through the bank?
Yep.
Instead of mailing it?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go to, there you go. We're all set. And you notice you can withdraw a check here, even though you started it. But you can also just hit OK, which is what we're going to do. And it brings up this check request verification. This is really where you want to double check the account number and the amount. And if we're good, hit OK.
Wait, the previous screen was nothing?
I'm sorry?
The previous screen prior to that was, you just skip over it?
Yeah, no.
That's where you add the assistance, and then it pops up when you come back.
Go ahead and do it again. Add assistance. I think the vendor verification screen somehow flipped on this. No. Hit OK. What I'd like you to do is add a new assistant. We're going to start another one for utility bills. Okay, start a new one. Okay, category, utilities, you. Resource electric. $100. Now just, there you go. That's exactly right. Throw in garbage and hit next. Okay, so this screen is the one you're on, and we have to, there you go. And we need to do yes on the check request up on the top. And the vendors, just pick the first one on there, dash or whatever. Okay, now there. This screen, does everybody know what vendor verified on means? You can't take the client's word that they have $300 on their electric bill. You need to call Walton EMC or whoever and confirm this is the amount of, this is the cutoff date, etc. And then you enter the date there that you actually did that. Okay? Nadia, okay? You still with me? Okay. So you don't have to do anything to this screen other than verify. Look at the account number. You have to put in the right account number, put in the right amount. This is like one last double check that indeed, I'm sorry? Yes?
Where can you populate the addresses for Americans, for example?
You don't need to. It's on the drop-down menu.
It's not, it doesn't come open in front of the checks.
But then you can add the account.
Yeah, you have to do a name, I'm just saying.
Let us capture that because my treasurer is not having that issue, but let's capture that. We need addresses for all vendors. That are pre-owned. No, I'm not going to suggest it that way. I'm going to suggest that we're sure that they're in the system and they go to the treasurer. I'm not going to say that we're going to hand key those. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, no, I would never go down that road. Okay. And so this is the point at which, when you hit next, your treasurer gets an email saying, go write a check. Right?
On YouTube, take care of
Oh,
yourself.
no. You now know you requested the checks, and now when you hit next, the treasurer gets the email that says, please go write a check form. Right. Okay? And now you're basically done until the treasurer writes a check. And they're going to go write a check, and once they pay those two requests that are out there, CMS is going to automatically send you an email saying those checks have been paid. And we'll get a lot of feedback that says, I'm not getting that email. Be sure, time out, because we've got like 30 seconds left. Be sure your email address in your profile in CMS is correct.
I'm getting the request for the new check, but I'm not getting a request when that check is not.
So you know your email's working.
Right.
Okay, so check your settings. Because not all conferences, I think there's something in settings about sending an email when a check's been paid. We do have down here evaluations that I would like to pass out to evaluate all of today, but I also will stay here and answer any additional questions